listen.
I work for the Children's Defense Fund, was compiling evidence to change the law that would permit children with disabilities to go to public schools. It may be hard for younger people to even imagine, but when I was growing up, and as late as the early 1970s, if you had a disability, almost no matter how minor, if you were deaf or blind, if you were in a wheelchair, you had some other disability, you were not welcomed, and the public schools were not required to give you an education. So I went door to door and got evidence by knocking on doors and asking if people had school-age children that weren't in school. And I was invited into these modest homes and apartments, and I met kids in wheelchairs and blind kids and kids with behavioral problems and mental health problems and the whole range of disabilities. So our country made a big step in 1976 by passing the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. We were the first nation that ever did that, and I'm very proud. Then we went to the Americans with Disabilities Act to try to open up more employment opportunities and fair treatment and end discrimination. And again, we've made a lot of progress, but there is more work to be done. It's especially important that we pay attention to the needs of people with disabilities, because as we live longer and as modern medicine keeps people alive and functioning, we're going to have a higher and higher percentage of Americans with disabilities. It is in our interest, as well as being fair to people with disabilities, that we do everything we can to make people as productive and independent and self-sufficient as possible, and I'm committed to doing that. Okay? Yeah. Okay. Oh, here's, okay. It's voice activated.
Can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Hillary, I think you're fabulous. And I think most Democrats across the country know that you are the person with the most experience. A lot of Democrats, obviously, from turnouts also are inspired by Barack. I'd like to know, I'm voting for you clearly, I'd like to know when your campaign is going to make more of the public.
Just keep talking. I'll let you.
No, that was Jay. He was checking.
Barack's time can be in the future, that your time is now, you've earned it. Experience making more of this now before the Pennsylvania primary, the primaries to come up. Make more of this, that Barack's time is yet to come. He's a good man, but you have the experience. We need you to say this.
Well, you know, I'm going to make the affirmative case for myself, because I believe that voters can decide between the two of us. Obviously, I would not be running as hard as I'm running, with as much conviction as I have about what we need to do in our country, if I did not believe I would be the best president of the three of us, and I did not believe I would be the better candidate to defeat John McCain. And that is what I am going to be telling voters, and hopefully encouraging voters to think that through for themselves. And I appreciate very much your support. Let's see, we've got this gentleman right there. Yes, sir, right there. Here comes a microphone. Hopefully it'll work.
Our country's being overrun by illegal immigrants who are destroying our health care system, educational system, and even the prison systems. What are you going to do about that?
You know, I want to tell you what I think we need to do, and you know, ask you to think hard about this. There is no doubt that we have a very significant number of people who came here illegally, somewhere between 12 and 14 million. And we've got to figure out how we're going to handle that. So here's what I believe is the best way to approach it. Because I know that it can't be just one thing. We got to have a comprehensive approach. I have voted for and spoken out for toughening border security, more personnel, more technology, where appropriate, a physical barrier. But I want you to realize that 40% of the people who are here illegally came here legally to start with. So our problem is not just over our borders. Our problem is the people we let in and then lose track of. Think about it. Those hijackers, most of them came here legally to go to school, to make a trip. Remember, some of them enrolled in programs to learn how to fly planes, and we lost track of them. So it's not enough to say we're going to toughen border security. We need a much more effective internal system to keep track of people who come here legally, and then don't leave when they're supposed to leave. And it's not just our borders, it's also our ports, our airports, and so much else. And as somebody who has a state like you do along the Canadian border, it's not just one border either that has to be toughened up. Number two, we have to crack down on employers who employ people here who are undocumented and do it in a way that deters future employers from doing that. If people, I bet if we were honest with ourselves and you were motivated and you were ambitious and you cared about your future and your family, many of us put in the same circumstances as the folks who come here to work would do it as well. Because it is about seeking a better life. And obviously, there's opportunities here that aren't in their own communities. So we've got to get employers understanding they cannot violate the law and cracking down. Number three,
Hillary Clinton campaigned